These are my audience members, Deborah Weaver and Quentin Blunt.
Picture this. You almost die. You lose your career, and you don't even recognize yourself anymore. All at the same time. Now, not only think about getting back to where you were, but surpassing that even further. That's not a movie plot. It happens to real people. I know everyone in this room has hit a wall at some point. Maybe it was bombing a test you had been studying hard for, or just one of those stretches in life where nothing seems to go right. The thing is, hardships happen to everybody. It's just how you respond to them. When I started preparing for this speech, I wanted to understand what resilience is. So I dug into psychology research, neuroscience journals, and behavioral science to get to the real answer. Resilience isn't something you have or you don't, it's a process. One based on your brain functioning, driven by all the people around you, and changeable in all aspects of life. So today we're going to look at three things: what resilience is and what happens to your brain when you experience it, how the people in your life directly fuel your ability to bounce back, and what resilience actually looks like when it plays out in the real world. Before we can appreciate what resilience does for us, we need to understand what it actually is. A lot of people think resilience simply as tough or not letting things bother you, but that's not the case. The American Psychological Association defines resilience as the capacity to recover and even grow in the face of serious adversity. And more importantly, it doesn't matter if you don't feel pain, it means you move on and deal with it. That's a bigger divide than most people realize. Researchers Dr. Stephen Southwick and Dr. Dennis Charney found that resilient people have a stronger connection between the emotional part of the brain and the rational part of the brain. In other words, they're not feeling less, they're just processing better. And here's the part that really should excite you: the brain is neuroplastic. So the more you practice resilient thinking, the more and more your brain physically rewires itself to make it easier over time. For example, take this. Serena Williams in 2017 had her first pregnancy, and she went down with a pulmonary embolism as well. She had an emergency surgery, and doctors didn't know she would ever play again. But 14 months later, she was on the stage in Wimbledon. That's not a story about being superhuman. That's exactly what neuroscience of resilience looks like when it plays out in somebody's real life. The brain is a compelling thing, but here's the thing that they don't tell you: the people around you might be more important than everything else. A study done at the Columbia University of more than 2,000 students in a year and a half after a traumatic event, the single most consistent thing that they predicted was whether they bounced back was having a solid relationship with someone they could trust. Not wealth, not intelligence, just someone who was trusting and genuinely there. People with social networks recovered faster and were happier down the road. And it is not just for people. Whole communities show that this works as well. Research from Harvard Schools of Public Health have found that neighborhoods with high levels of trust and civic involvement recover from disasters and economic crises much faster. After Hurricane Katrina, communities that had strong social networks rebuilt about 40% faster than those who were fragmented. That's not a small difference. That's almost half again as fast. Relationships you invest in aren't just nice to have. They are literally building blocks for your capacity to handle whatever comes next. Serena Williams has spoken openly about her sister Venus and father Richard that were anchors to her through every setback. What the data tells us from the population level is what her story tells us from an individual level. Now that we know the way resilience works in the brain and how relationships drive it, let's talk about what really breeds resilience in terms of grades, career, mental health, and really in the real world. A 4-year longitudinal study of 1,100 college students found that students who scored higher on resilience at the start of college were 31% more likely to graduate on time and reported a 42% higher career satisfaction 5 years later. Dr. Angela calls it grit, but it also predicts success better than IQ. It's better than talent, and it's better than socioeconomical background. Let that sink in. The ability to persist through failure is a stronger indicator of where you will end up than how smart you are or where you even started. Roughly speaking, the World Health Organization called resilience development one of the three most important strategies for preventing depression and anxiety worldwide. Studies have shown that clinical programs that teach resilience skills have a 28% reduction in recurrent major depression compared to standard care alone. This isn't motivational fluff, it's a clinical based evidence treatment. Zoom out even further and it holds. The APA has linked national resilience built on social trust and community cohesion with economic recovery speed and democratic stability. Community is key. In conclusion, I want to offer you something more than just information. We focused on resilience in three ways: what happens in your brain when you're under attack, how your relationships help you recover, and what resilience does for achievement, mental health, and even national outcomes. Serena Williams didn't survive surgery and get back to the Wimbledon because she's some sort of special human being. She got there because she was living out the very principles that research confirms: that suffering can be processed, that community sustains us, and that continuing isn't a skill, it's a continuing is a skill and not a superpower. Resilience isn't something that shows up when life isn't going well. It's what you create. One thought, one relationship, one single decision at a time. So when life gets harder, you're already more prepared for it than you think.